Chapter 22. Spirit of the Forest. Any hope I had of sleeping late on Saturday morning abruptly disappeared 2 hours before the sun rose. Good gracious! Easton was awake and alive. Conch shells and horns blew everywhere. Coal tumbled loudly down wooden chutes at the loading docks behind us. Worst of all were the ear-splitting steam whistles that signaled the start of the day for hundreds of workers at the Abbott Street factories along the Lehigh River. I pulled my feather pillow over my head and held it tight to my ears. "Father, will it stop soon?" "No, Finn, it won't," he chuckled. "Easton doesn't sleep very long. Let's get up and have breakfast. We'll be heading home soon." We had a quiet day ahead. Father's only responsibility was to stop at the furnaces in Glendon and arrange to pick up a load of iron pigs the following Monday. We would be hauling them to a town called New Hope along the Delaware Canal. I couldn't wait to see what another canal was like. Conan and Rogan were happy to see me. I walked them across the Southeastern Bridge and met Colin and Father and the Belfast Queen. We were soon on our way, and it wasn't long before Father was at the Glendon iron furnaces making his plans. Our stop was brief. 15 minutes later, I was on the mule ferry at Smith Island. Father and Colin poled the boat across the Lehigh one more time. A short tow along the riverbank brought us to Lock 46 at Hopesville. "Father," I said, after we locked into the canal, "since I don't have any chores, can I walk home? It's not far." "I suppose, Finn. Shall I tell Mother to expect you for lunch?" "No. Maybe I'll stop at Geisinger's and see if Jenny is home." "All right, Finn, just be careful and be home for supper." I passed farms of all sizes as I walked the towpath from Hopesville to Freemansburg. I saw Augustus and Jonathan Scheimer cutting corn and shaping it into shocks. Mr. Stoller was loading huge orange pumpkins into his wagon. Everyone was taking advantage of the good autumn weather. Ahead of me was Gwinner's Island, my favorite spot to look for Indian arrowheads. It was right across the river from Geisinger's grist mill. I took off my shoes and socks, rolled up my trousers, and carefully picked my way across a shelf of rocks that stretched from the canal bank to the island. I made it without falling in. I pulled on my socks and laced my shoes and started walking along the island's rocky edge, looking intently for stones of just the right size and shape. I was so focused on looking down that I never saw the sycamore limb hanging at forehead level right in front of me. "Ouch!" I moaned as I walked into it. "That hurt!" I heard a soft giggle. Good gracious, had someone seen me be so awkward? I looked up. There in front of me, not 15 feet away, was a girl sitting on a large rock. She smiled and put a finger to her lips as though she wanted me to be quiet. Then she slowly stretched out an arm and pointed to a nearby log at the edge of the river. I looked and saw a large turtle. It was black on top and kind of yellowish underneath. Its head was out of its shell and its eyes were closed. It was taking a nap in the warm afternoon sun. The girl motioned me to join her. I turned and slowly walked toward her in a wide arc. I didn't want to disturb the turtle. I reached the rock and climbed up next to her. And there's the girl and the turtle on a log in the sunshine. She was dressed like any of the girls in Freemansburg, but her features were very different. She had long, shiny, coal-black hair that was tied up behind her head. Her skin was very tan, almost bronze, and her cheekbones were prominent and gave a pleasant shape to her face. When she looked at me, I was captivated by her dark, smiling eyes. "How is your forehead?" she whispered. "Oh, it's all right," I answered. "That was clumsy of me." "What were you looking for?" "Indian arrowheads," I replied. "I like to collect them." "How long have you been watching that turtle?" "An hour, maybe more," she said. "It was on the log when I arrived. I'll watch it until it decides to leave." "What's your name?" I asked. "Sarah. And yours?" "I'm Finn Gorman, Sarah. Very pleased to meet you." Sarah didn't provide her last name. She had a certain air of mystery about her, yet I felt very comfortable in her presence. I groped for something more to say, but Sarah seemed content just watching the turtle bask in the sunshine. Then she broke the silence. "Finn," she whispered, "the turtle has decided what it will do." I looked at the log. As far as I could tell, the turtle was still asleep. It hadn't moved an inch. Then, without notice, its legs came out of its shell. It took 3 steps forward and eased itself into the river. "How did you know it was going to move?" I said, as we watched the turtle swim along the shoreline. "The sun was no longer on its back," Sarah replied. "It was time to find another warm spot. A turtle is a patient creature, but once it makes up its mind, it always moves forward to a better situation." Well, I had talked with Jenny about school and her father's business, and with Susan Dietrich about her father's canal boat, but I'd never had a conversation with a girl about animals, let alone turtles. Sarah seemed to know a lot. I looked at her as she watched the turtle disappear downriver. I didn't know how Sarah came to be sitting on Gwenner's Island, or where she came from, but she certainly added interest to my day. A sudden gust of wind loosened her hair and blew it into her face. As she held it up to retie it, I noticed a thin strip of leather around her neck. I didn't want to seem rude, but I had to ask a question. "What do you have around your neck, Sarah?" She quickly buttoned the top of her blouse to hide the leather strip. She turned her head toward the river. I felt I had asked the wrong question. Then I had an idea. I reached underneath my shirt, grabbed my stone, and pulled it over my head. "Look, Sarah, here's what I wear around my neck." She turned toward me and looked at the stone. Her dark eyes widened and her mouth opened. She was so still that I didn't know if she was still breathing. "Sarah, are you all right?" I asked. Where did you get that?" she said. "How long have you had it?" "I found it this summer when my brother and I were training our mules," I answered. "It was buried in the ground behind our house. I thought it looked like a face. It had a hole in it, so I strung a strip of leather through it and started wearing it. It's done some strange things to me." Sarah raised her hands and lifted the leather string off her neck and over her head. She held it in front of me. I could not believe what was tied to it. "Sarah, it's my stone," I said. "I mean, it's your stone, but it's just like my stone." Sure enough, it was identical in size, shape, and color. It had the same indentations that looked like eyes and the same flat ridge that looked like a nose. Then Sarah said something I never expected. "Finn, can I trust you to keep my secret? You are the only person I know who has a stone like mine. You must have it for a reason. Can I trust you to keep my secret?" "Yes," I said without hesitation. "Yes, Sarah, you can trust me." She held her stone tightly and looked at the sky. Her eyes closed and she took a deep breath. Then she spoke. "Finn, I am Lenape," she said. "I am an Indian, and the stones we wear hold the spirit of Missingre. He is a powerful spirit who watches over animals and other living things of the forest. Those who carry the image of Missing receive the power of his spirit." I was stunned. Not only was Sarah an Indian, but she was telling me that I was carrying a powerful spirit around my neck. The unusual sensations that angered and scared me during the last 2 weeks began to make sense. I had so many questions, but there was something I needed to know right away. "Sarah, where do you live, and how do you come to Gwenner's Island?" "Finn, I trust you as a friend. Missing has chosen you, so I will tell you my story. I live near the Blue Mountain in the land of my ancestors. My great-grandparents refused to leave their land when white settlers pushed most of our people west. They lived in secrecy to avoid conflict. My grandparents and parents also chose to stay in Lenape, the land of our forefathers. But it was difficult to avoid contact with white settlements, so they adopted the dress and the language of the white people and lived quiet lives. Even though the Indian wars were long over, there were still many whites who would harm them in revenge. My parents died from disease when I was a little girl. My grandmother is raising me. I walk to this area to visit an uncle who lives nearby. I sit on this island and others in the river to observe the natural world and learn respect for the earth and its living things. And there are Finn and Sarah's amulets on their leather strings being held out for each other to look at. I was dumbstruck. Sarah was a complete stranger, yet she was revealing her deepest secrets to me. The stone had indeed created a strong bond of trust between us. "Finn, does your stone ever become warm?" she asked. "Yes, a lot," I answered. "The first time I felt it was when we were going through Lehigh Water Gap. I saw eagles flying above the Blue Mountain, and I believe they were talking to me. Then there was the time I was in a great forest near Whitehaven, and lumberjacks were cutting enormous hemlock trees all around me. I couldn't stand to see them fall. I felt helpless and angry. It was like watching the forest's grandfathers being killed one by one. The worst time was in the gorge above Mauch Chunk. I saw a boat captain shoot a bear. The poor animal never suspected any trouble. It tumbled down the mountainside, and the boat captain did nothing but laugh. My stone was red hot, and I yelled at the captain until my father told me to stop. The next day, the captain and his crew got sick from eating the meat. Sarah smiled and reached for my hand. "Finn, I am glad we met. I feel the spirit of Mising lives in both of us. I have witnessed acts of disrespect too, and each time my stone becomes warm against my chest like yours. Lenape is changing. Animals and forests are disappearing, and the soil that supports all life is being lost to the winds and rivers. You and I understand the spirit of Mising, and because of that, we will be friends forever. You and I respect the earth and everything upon the earth." A sense of calm came over me. The turtle reappeared on the log and gazed at Sarah and me. It had a look of wisdom. "Sarah, do you hear the turtle talking?" I quietly asked my friend. "Yes, Finn, I do. And do you?" "Yes, I do. It's telling me to be patient and thoughtful, and to always have courage." I turned to thank Sarah for sharing her story, but she was gone. I never saw her again, but the time she and I spent together on Gwinner's Island changed my life. Like the turtle, I learned great patience, and as time went on, my walks upon the earth became increasingly soft and gentle. Well, that's it for Chapter 22. Join us again on Friday for the last 2 chapters of Tales of the Towpath. And thanks again for joining me today. Take care.